Religious tensions are rising in Malaysia over the name of Allah. A recent High Court ruling allowing non-Muslims to use the Arabic word for God has sparked protests in mosques and attacks on Christian churches. The issue has highlighted the fate of minority ethnic and religious groups in this Malay Muslim majority country. I'm Fauzia Ibrahim. On this edition of 101 East, we go to the heart of the debate raging in Malaysia over the ownership of the word Allah. Religion has always been closely linked to ethnicity in Malaysia. Some 64% of the population is Malay and, according to the constitution, must be Muslim. The rest of the nation is made up mainly of Chinese, Indians or indigenous peoples who are mostly Buddhists, Hindus, Christians or animists. This is a country where each race knows its social and political place, and while Malaysia's many cultures and faiths make for a colourful nation, problems arise when one group tests their boundaries.
Kami sayang kalimah Allah. Kalimah Allah.
Some Malay Muslim groups are protesting a court ruling that the word Allah is not exclusive to Islam. These groups fear such a legal judgment could lead to the abuse of the word by non-Muslims. They also claim it could confuse some Muslims and may even encourage apostasy, which in some Malaysian states is a criminal offence. The controversy stems from a 3-year government ban on a Catholic newspaper using the word Allah to denote the Christian God in its Malay language edition. The Catholic Church challenged the ban in court, arguing the Arabic word predates Islam and has been used for decades by Christians in Malaysia and Indonesia. In the wake of the High Court ruling, several churches were firebombed and attacked in what some say is a means to remind the Christian minority of their place in the Malaysian society.
They feel intimidated, and this is unfortunate because they went through a process in court and there's a decision that has been made to only uplift the fact that what we have been doing in our worship life and in our devotional life is acceptable as part and parcel of that free practice of our faith in this country.
The authorities have condemned the attacks and are calling for calm.
Kita juga mesti menunjukkan bahawa kita adalah warga negara Malaysia.
We must show that we are Malaysian citizens who are responsible and wish to live in peace and harmony among the various races.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
But several Malay Muslim groups say the matter will only be resolved if the church drops their demand to use the word Allah.
Hidup, 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 hidup.
In Malaysia context, when we refer to Muslim, it is only for Malay and Malay language, and the term of Allah is only exclusive to the Malay, so-called Malay nation. And when we talk about other religions, Buddhist and Hinduism, they commonly are using Mandarin and Tamil.
Some analysts blame Malaysia's ruling coalition for equating religion to race. Critics say it's a political tactic that's kept the dominant United Malays National Organisation, or UMNO, in power for decades.
In this country, Muslims are synonymous with Malay, and so anything which is done against Islam is seen to be something which is done against the Malays. The UMNO in particular is utterly dependent on the Malay vote. So it's to pander to the fears of the Malays, to say that without them you are under threat, without them Islam is under threat. What they haven't done is taken responsibility for the fertile ground for this kind of racist behavior, which they have been laying down for the past few years.
Malaysia's government has appealed against the court verdict, citing it is a national security issue. The High Court has now suspended the ruling's implementation pending the hearing. Meanwhile, the current religious and racial tensions are threatening to derail Prime Minister Najib Razak's efforts to foster unity in his multicultural country. Under his One Malaysia concept, The Prime Minister is urging the nation to erase ethnic lines and build trust and respect. But critics say as long as the ruling coalition continues to play on racial and religious politics, the One Malaysia idea will remain an empty slogan. Joining me here in Kuala Lumpur to discuss Malaysia's rising religious tension is Malaysian opposition MP Khalid Samad, social activist Marina Mahathir, and Yusri Mohammed from the Malaysian Islamic Youth Movement. Thank you very much for joining us today. Yusri, if I could start with you. You are opposed to the High Court ruling for non-Muslims to be able to use the word Allah. Tell us why.
Yeah, it's not just my opinion. We already have an official fatwa, a religious ruling of the highest fatwa council in the country since May 2008 that this term Allah is exclusive for Muslims. And coming from the Fatwa Council of Malaysia, it is a clear word, a clear position, at least in the context of Malaysia. And since it is clearly a clear position of the mainstream, I can say, as supported by this Fatwa Council, it becomes a sensitive issue when anyone insists on using something which is not allowed to be used according to the Muslim position, the Islamic position.
Well, Khalid Samad, you're from the opposition Islamic Party, and yet you're okay with non-Muslims using the word Allah.
Yes, because we find that there are very clear evidences in the Quran and also in the traditions of the Prophet.
So you're saying that you disagree with this fatwa from 2008?
Well, we were never consulted. I mean, the National Fatwa Council, all due respect, was a council that was appointed in a manner which did not refer to all the religious scholars in the country. And we understand that in Malaysia, nothing is free from politics, and the stand that Islam is Malay and Malay is Islam is rubbish. But at the same time, the National Fatwa Council says nothing about it.
We'll come back to the equation between race and religion a little later on in the show. But Marina Mahathir, I want to ask you, you were talking about, well, you wrote about the confident Muslim. Where does that stand in, we've had these two points of view. Where does the confident Muslim stand in between that?
Well, I don't think I stand in any way. I mean, the excuse given for not allowing non-Muslims to use the word Allah is because it will confuse Muslims, and I think that's a terribly demeaning way of describing ourselves. If we have faith in our own religion, then we ought to be able to stand up to anything, and a word is not going to shake it. And I don't understand why we put ourselves in such a vulnerable position by describing ourselves as weak and confused and of low intellect. I've had people saying, it's okay for you because you're highly intelligent, but there are lots of low intelligence people out there. That's so, patronizing, condescending, demeaning and all that.
Yusri Mohammed, would you...
A confident Muslim need not be always correct. A person can be confident, fully confident, but he's wrong.
That's a good description of you, I suppose.
Well, let's not start calling names here. Well, and we have this guy called Ayah Pin, the head of a deviant leader. I'm sure he's very confident, and he describes himself as God. God incarnate.
I think, confident doesn't mean the way you project yourself necessarily. It means confidence in your faith, trusting yourself in your beliefs, that you've been taught correctly, this is what you believe in, and it ought to be able to withstand anything.
Yusri Mohammed, what do you say?
Faith is faith you can't see if your faith is being eroded. It's not like a headache where your head is throbbing. Sometimes even it's not like a physical sickness. You have to go to the doctor, and
but
the doctors are the ulama.
Isn't faith an individual matter, though? Faith is a personal matter, though. Isn't that the case?
No, not in Islam. Not always in Islam. You have Islam is a religion where the divide between the private and the public is not as clear as in other religions. So you cannot try to.
But where does it say that the state has to regulate faith?
Oh, It's there in Islamic tradition. If we
That the state has to regulate how you
Yes,
believe.
It's
But you
one
can
of the
lie.
responsibilities of the state
I'm
to
sure.
defend the
Yeah.
correct understanding of Islam. But at the same time, there is no substitute to knowledge. You have to understand your own religion. And there is no shortcut as far as this is concerned. You cannot use it as an excuse in order to prevent people of other beliefs from practicing what is their right. So if a Muslim understands Allah is a single God, he understands his religion as a religion of monotheism. So if other people use the word Allah and they mean three in one, or they mean some other thing, I mean, a Muslim should be able to understand that this is different.
Is the heart of the matter here a debate between liberal Muslims and conservative Muslims? Marina?
Well, I don't particularly like those labels. You know, I think it's actually a political debate. In fact, it's got very little to do with religion.
I beg to differ. I beg to differ. We have a clear fatwa. We have a fatwa.
But
fatwa is an advice.
Unless
number one. Number two,
it's
you
not just an
assume
advice,
that the
it
National
has been-
Fatwa Council is completely independent,
and you
which
are
is not the
assuming
case.
you are assuming
No, the
they are
reality in Malaysia, the reality
not
in Malaysia
independent?
is everything.
Is that the official
Yes.
past stand?
No, that's my
The past is
stand.
against
I
the
cannot-
Fatwa
no, I'm
Council?
not.
We will come back to this
will-
and we will talk
okay.
about the link between religion and politics,
Yeah.
specifically here in Malaysia. We're going to have to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll have more on this issue. Stay with 101 East. Welcome back to 101 East. This week we're looking at the issue of rising religious tensions in Malaysia following a recent High Court ruling which declared non-Muslims could use the word Allah when referring to God. Yusri Muhammad, just before we went off on the break, you said that this is an issue that is specific to Malaysia. Why? The word Allah has been used for centuries in Arabic countries by Muslims as well as Christians. It's also used in Indonesia, both by Muslims and Christians. Why specifically?
Well,
why should Malaysia be so special?
Yeah, for one thing, this is not the Christians in Malaysia are insisting. It's not a general trend of Christians, of Catholics all over the world. It's a minority trend here we are talking about, and this is happening in Malaysia, and we are dealing with the Malay language. It's about translating Christian materials, the Bibles maybe, into Malay. Malay is a language. We have our own dictionaries, we have our own systems of the language. It's about translation. And the problem is these people are trying to translate the word wrongly. And it also happens to be a sensitive religious religious
I think we should
issue.
point out
So
that the Bible...
Two wrongs there.
Marina Mahathir.
I think we should point out that the Bible is not allowed to be translated into Malay in this country. And this is why they had to import...
Which is right.
My God,
It's
why?
part and
Isn't
parcel.
that some
Isn't
form
that-
of
isn't it
religious
right?
persecution?
Isn't
Come on, they've
it?
got rights.
There is-
I mean, the
This is-
people in Sabah and Sarawak,
I mean,
their
what-
first language is Bahasa Malaysia. And when you translate God to Allah, what, you disagree? God is not Allah?
If it's wrong,
I mean,
it's
why-
wrong.
How can you be wrong?
It's
God
the
is
wrong
Allah. Allah is God. Is there another God besides
God is
Allah?
Tuhan. We have this Malay
Tuhan
term,
is Allah?
Tuhan is a more
Is
flexible.
Allah not
Tuhan
Tuhan?
is a more flexible
You
term.
mean there are other gods besides Allah? There's another
that's-
Tuhan besides Allah?
That's not.
I mean, that's the most, as far as the Muslim is concerned, that's the most accurate translation of the word God and Tuhan. And I cannot understand people who say, I get upset when they say Allah is three, but it's okay for them to say God is three. I mean, does it make sense to you?
Yes, it does make sense.
My
because
God.
Allah is
It's a linguistic difference.
In
you
what
know.
way does
I
it
don't
make
agree
sense?
that
It's
God
about
is three.
link-
I reject the concept of God being three. I'm as a Muslim. I reject the concept that Tuhan is three. I mean, we reject
When you say
Trinity.
three,
It's
you're
not-
talking about the Trinity,
yes.
the
Of
Christian
course,
Trinity.
Yes.
You look at the Catholic encyclopedia. It describes Allah as a God to the Muslims.
Yeah.
But because
Britannica
that's because they don't
describes
speak
as Allah-
Malay.
doesn't- because
Yeah.
Our
And I
own
think-
dictionary,
I
Malay
think
dictionary,
as
the most
Muslims-
authoritative dictionary, describes
You know what?
Allah.
As Muslims and as the majority people in this country, we can afford to be generous.
What do you think is the motive behind the Christians, behind the churches bringing this issue to the court?
This
What
should
is
be
this
the question
motive?
asked
No, I
by
mean,
everyone.
it is, I think, completely a proper challenge because they were banned from using the word, from translating it as Allah. They were refuse to ban from
But surely
bringing
there must
in.
be,
And
you have to see it
it's a
from the
legal
majority
challenge.
Malay point of view as well. This is a very sensitive issue. As a minority
Well,
group,
then, you know who I would,
be sensitive?
but you know what, then who I would fault? I would fault the government, I would fault the Attorney General for not being far-sighted enough to see and to have tried to negotiate some sort of settlement that didn't have to go to court.
And
having allowed it to go to court, not even thinking of how to deal with whatever scenario that would
Yusri
develop.
Mohammed,
I'm in
would you
full
have
agreement,
agreed for Christians to be able to continue to use the word Allah in their publications if it hadn't gone to court?
No, I would disagree. It's a principal thing. It's a principal matter.
But it's also a matter of principle for
The
them.
fact of the matter, Fauzia,
this is Malaysia.
is that
We
they have
to-
been
Khalid
using
Samad.
the word Allah all this while in Sabah and in Sarawak. This is the reality. I mean, you cannot deny the fact that people in Sabah and Sarawak have been using the Bible.
So why
which been
suddenly?
translated
Why this
into-
controversy
Now they want the
now?
Christian Herald wants to send their articles over to East Malaysia, and all this while they have not been able to do any translation in Bahasa Malaysia because Bahasa Malaysia is the Malay language, and Malays are Muslims. You know, and that is the gospel truth.
Yusri Mohammed, you were quoted as saying, allowing Christians to use the word Allah is dangerous because it's attacking the sole religion of the Malays. Now, what seems to be a religious issue has now become a race issue.
We are not saying that. Well, in Malaysia, you have a situation, and we should not be apologetic. We should be proud that somehow in Malaysia, Islam and the Malays is so intertwined, is so in harmony that Alhamdulillah, thank God that we are able to
I think I disagree
to
with,
preserve,
Yusri
to maintain.
completely.
Let Yusri Mohammed,
to
let Yusri
maintain.
Mohammed make his point first.
To maintain and to preserve the religiosity of the Malays. They have been, by and large,
And
this
that's
is
all it
unique.
takes. All it takes is one
It is
word.
an achievement. It's not
It's
just
an
about one
achievement.
word here. We're
I
not
hope
talking about
not.
one word. It's about materials.
It's a
about
distortion.
it's about
It's not an
materials,
achievement.
which can this one word can lead to. And you were saying Sabah and Sarawak, but if we allow this ruling in this case to stand, it will mean the same practice will now is a license for the practice to be spread throughout Malaysia.
What practice
and what is
exactly?
wrong in Sabah and Sarawak should not be. Should be
What is wrong? It's wrong for Sabah and Sarawak to be
Are you
Christian.
telling me that in the Middle East the ulama have all been asleep? That all this while the Muslim
They have
ulama
not been asleep.
in Saudi
They have not
Arabia,
been asleep,
in the
and
Middle
it is
East,
misleading.
all have not done their responsibility by preventing the Christians and the Jews from using
They
the
have
word
not.
Allah. There is no such thing that is a right
the majority
thing
of
and that's a
Christians
principle.
and the
It's
rest
not-
of the
it's
world
not
is not
true.
using Allah.
Earlier on, there was the issue, and someone made the link between Malays and Muslim, between religion and race
Yes,
as
that's
well.
a distortion of the religious teaching.
In
There's
what
no
way,
such thing.
Khalid Samad?
Because there is no justification to say that Malays means Muslim and that Islam is Malay. I mean, this is a distortion that's being done by UMNO for their own political ends. Sorry, Marina. So
I'm not
this
very-
is something which we have to state. I mean, this is for the sake of their own political ends. They have distorted the teachings of Islam to say that Islam is Malay and everything that's Malay is Islam.
Well, let
And
me
that's
throw this
rubbish.
question to you then. If PAS, if the
Yes.
Islamic Opposition Party was in power, how would they resolve this issue?
Well, we'll have a proper debate. We'll let all the views be aired. We do a proper explanation and we find what's the truth according to the Quran and according to the traditions of the Prophet. We understand that there is a part of Islam which is siyasah syariah, which allows that even though the thing is allowable, but in order to maintain public security, public peace, and so on and so forth, in the case that it can lead to problems, then you may be given, you may, not allow it for it to be used for the time being until the issue is clarified. But you
Marina-
cannot defend a misunderstanding. You cannot defend a deviationist kind of interpretation.
Marina Mahathir, do you think this is a political issue? It is no longer a religious issue? It's
Do I need
become-
more proof than these two guys that it's a political issue, They're arguing completely from political points of view. So, yeah, yes, I think it is political, really. Islam is a universal religion. I think it has room for everyone, and it's certainly not limited. It doesn't make sense to me to limit it to a particular race or a particular language. And I think it's sad that we are doing this.
You demean Islam when you say Islam is Malay, because Islam is high.
I agree
Islam
with
is the highest.
It's wrong to politicize religion. I'm very
politicize
uncomfortable.
it either.
I'm very uncomfortable. I'm not from PAS. I'm not from the political parties. I'm from an NGO background. I'm an academic. I am very uncomfortable looking at observing how PAS and both PAS and UMNO is handling these things. They are trying to. It becomes a game of one-upmanship. When in reality they should just, when it comes to religion, you go to the scholars. They go to the scholars.
We've just seen churches being firebombed. This issue has become violent now. Yusri Mohammed, what do you think is the best resolution to this issue?
This is wrong. This is again an example of when religion is interpreted just by anyone. You will have extremists. Now we are criticizing fatwa, but remember, if we open the issue of fatwa or religious interpretation to everyone, there will also be those from the extreme, and they will come up with the jihad fatwa. This is allowed. So that's why when it comes to religions, it's always safer to
have a church that speaks
Islam
the
is not
gospel truth.
There's no mystery about Islam.
And don't question
there is no mystery about Islam.
I want to give Marina Mahathir the last say.
I think the best resolution does not come from politicians or the government. It comes from the people, and I'm very happy to see there's so many citizen initiatives to reach out to people in peace.
Yes.
And if Islam is a religion of peace, that's really what we should be pursuing, and not this divisiveness.
Yes. And we're going to have to leave it there. I realize we've just run out of time, and there's far, far more things to discuss, but we are going to have to leave it there. That's all the time we have for this edition of 101 East. Many thanks to our guests, Khalid Samad, Marina Mahathir, and Yusri Mohammed. From all the 101 East team, thanks for watching.